This is such a good song. Coming up next, the rock and roll lifestyle sounds really interesting from afar. And there's the wild parties, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll mantra that many have lived by. It makes for good copy. But for a musician who could easily be carved into the Mount Rushmore of guitar heroes, the glitzy lives of the rich and famous, they're not all that they're cracked up to be. In fact, for this icon, it's all just a put on. This is a story of a band teetering on implosion, grappling with the loss of their legendary bandmate and a track that was initially panned, but has since risen to become a modern rock classic. A song where the legendary singer and the iconic guitarist actually swap spots on an album that the band still hates with a passion. Find out why, and find out how this track came about next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you ever fell asleep and then woke up and the TV was doing this, remember that? You'll dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below so you always know when our interviews and our videos and the songs, the history of the songs are coming out. Also, check us out on Patreon for even more content and to become an honorary producer to help us curate this content. On September 7th of 1978, Keith Moon the Loon, one of the top 5 drummers of the rock era, and definitely one of its wildest personalities, passed away. The surviving members of The Who, Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, and John Entwistle, they were devastated. They faced a crucial decision. Should they continue without the musician who helped make them one of the biggest rock bands of all time? Or was this the end? Led Zeppelin encountered a similar dilemma a year later when John Bonzo Bonham died. Plant, Page, and Jones decided that Bonham's death marked the end of Zeppelin, and they officially disbanded. After months of deliberation, The Who decided to go ahead and forge ahead without their beloved co-founder. They brought in their longtime friend, a guy named Kenny Jones, to take over as drummer and release Face Dances, their 9th studio album and their first record without Keith Moon. In 1981, Face Dances was a solid album, highlighted by the cuts You Better You Bet and Another Tricky Day.
You say you better, you better, you better, you better. When I say this is no social crisis, just another tricky day for you.
Face Dances prospered. It reached number 4 on the Billboard Top 200 album chart and number 2 on the UK album chart, and it sold over 2 million units worldwide. Well, the band prepared to fulfill their contractual obligation to put out their 10th studio album, It's Hard, in '82. They continued to battle internal strife. The Who were still mourning the loss of Keith Moon, and there were the issues for Pete, who was their primary songwriter. He was a complete mess. He had to enter a rehab for heavy drug and alcohol abuse. Upon his return, there were definitely personal and creative rifts to heal. Pete Townsend would say, and I quote, "I managed to convince the guys in the band that I would stay alive if they allowed me to work with them again." So after the Rainbow fiasco, a 1981 concert where Townsend drank 4 bottles of brandy and got into a backstage fight with Roger, he said, "I had difficulty proving to Roger in particular that I was going to enjoy working with The Who, and that it was important to me that the band end properly rather than end because of my mental demise," end of quote. In 1982, Pete Townsend found himself stumbling into middle age in terrible shape. It had him in a dangerous grip that could have easily become a death sentence. At 37 years of age, he had experienced it all. Fame, fortune, acclaim. He was rock royalty, a status most people would give anything to achieve. However, for Pete, being a rock star wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. It felt like a facade. That's where he coined an Eminence Front.
It's an eminent front. It's an eminent front. So put on.
An eminence front is a term describing the illusion someone projects to the outside world, concealing their true self and maintaining appearances. It refers to a deceptive display of superiority, power, or importance. Pete Townsend believed that show business was rife with individuals living a lie, putting on a facade to hide their vulnerabilities and their insecurities. In Eminence Front, Pete wrote about the delusions and drug use of the wealthy and hedonistic. The lyrics depict a party where people hide from their problems behind a facade, wanting the public and their peers to believe that they're just living the dream. Kind of like nowadays on social media. Come and join the party, dressed to kill. Those are the words. Pete often introduced Eminence Front in live performances by saying this song is about what happens when you take too much white powder. He knew from personal experience what that narcotic could do to a person. Cocaine did not distinguish between the caste system. In the 80s, Pete was reluctant to elaborate further on its meaning. While it's clearly about the absurdity of drug-fueled grandiosity, it's unclear whether Pete was pointing a finger at himself or at numerous blow dealers who ensured that their celebrity clients were always supplied with the drug.
That big wheel spins, the head thins.
But Eminence Front took on more than just showbiz celebrities. In the lyrics Share Crash, Hopes Are Dashed, the song criticized stockbrokers who were supposed to be responsible stewards of other people's money, but often cheated their clients to line their own pockets. It really foreshadowed the 80s being defined as the me decade or the decade of greed. Greed is good decade, right? Pete always had a penchant for experimenting with new production technology. During the recording sessions for It's Hard, he played around with the arrangement of Eminence Front, deliberately aiming to infuse some new wave elements alongside the classic Who-style organ, aligning with the emerging new wave movement. I think it's awesome. Eminence Front, it was built around a chord progression that Pete unearthed while playing his trusty Yamaha E70 organ. He used the same effect for You Better You Bet. Eminence Front opens with a percussive drum box as a solo sound. And gradually, the main groove builds in during the intro. Initially, a highly digitized, arpeggiated synthesizer enters, followed by a lower synth riff and a jazzy Fender Rhodes solo floating over the higher notes. Comparisons to Keith Moon, of course, inevitable, especially for diehard Who fans, but for Kenny Jones, his straightforward, no-frills drumming, it was outstanding on Eminence Front, you have to admit. It reinforced a sense of impending menace that gave the song a really dangerous edge. As the song progresses, a slow crawling drum groove and Townsend's bluesy guitar join the main groove. It's just really amazing. The chorus introduces John Entwistle's thumping fuzz tone bass along with a guitar buildup on the outro. Throughout the track, the Rhodes drives the groove until the song's dramatic, cold ending. I mean, Eminence Front is just flat out cool. There is a theatrical melody of progressive rock opera, a trail that The Who certainly blazed, combined with a nasty killer groove reminiscent of hardcore funk that is distinctly unique from anything else in The Who's catalog, for sure. And with the exception of some tracks by the Stones, it's distinctly different from anything else in the format of classic rock. I mean, it's kind of an oxymoron to have that much soulful funk in the music for a song about empty deception. And of course, another significant facet of Eminence Front that makes it so different in the discography of The Who is that the lead vocal is completely performed by Pete, not by Roger Daltrey. You have one of the greatest vocalists ever, and he's not singing it. They swap places for this song for sure. Pete singing, Roger playing guitar. It's well documented that despite collaborating for more than 18 years at that point, Pete and Roger didn't get along. There were philosophical flare-ups throughout the history of The Who that often led to personal shots, such as when Roger referred to Pete as the nose on a stick. Roger was particularly combative during vocal tracking. Despite Pete writing most of the band's songs, Roger wouldn't allow him in the studio while he recorded his vocals. Whenever Pete took the lead, Roger seemed unwilling to be a background singer or to help out in that fashion. And speaking of being out of sync with one another, it sure sounded that Pete and Roger were just not in sync on Eminence Front. In the originally released version, there's a timing flaw in the first chorus at the 2-minute 37-second mark. Pete sings behind an Eminence Front, simultaneously with Roger singing It's an Eminence Front, with Pete trailing one syllable behind. Now, the mistake was fixed on the remastered version of the reissues of Eminence Front, but when the song first came out, it really created confusion. Some people misheard the title as Eminem's Front because of this glitch, or was Pete doing a Ralph Cramden, Jackie Gleason impersonation? you tell me. Now, as we continue to break down the song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear on the show. I want to tell you about Zenni's Transitions Gen S. The Gen S lenses come in 8 optimized colors that darken in seconds and then return to clear very fast. In fact, they're up to 2 times faster to fade back to clear compared to their previous generation. Check it out today by clicking on our info button right up here or in the description below. It's a bit on the down low, but alternate takes on Eminence Front with Roger Daltrey on lead vocal do exist. Look it up on YouTube. I'll link to it. Here's a clip of it. Pete and Roger were forthcoming when they admitted that the two were disconnected on the Face Dances album, and then they were even further apart on It's Hard. Despite Townsend's dedication to the direction of the album, Roger never fully embraced It's Hard. At the time, he referred to it as a stopgap album, and he expressed feeling that they hadn't taken enough risks. In a 1994 interview, in fact, he was even more explicit, stating, and I quote, "It's Hard should have never been released," adding that he hated it. And 12 years later, he still hated it. However, Roger did say that he thought Eminence Front was the only song that was worth releasing from the album. And you know, the critics agreed with Roger's assessment of It's Hard. Stung by critical reception, The Who didn't release another studio album until Endless Wire in 2006, 4 years after the death of John Entwistle, was found in his hotel room at the Hard Rock Hotel in Paradise, Nevada, the night before The Who was set to kick off their 2002 U.S. tour.
No more John Entwistle, the bass player.
And they're going to miss John.
He died this afternoon at the Hard Rock Hotel, one day before the band was supposed to kick off their tour here.
It's Hard was the last Who album that Kenny Jones actually performed on. Although he reunited with the band for a benefit concert in 2014, Kenny's last performance as an official member of The Who was when the group received the Lifetime Achievement Award at the 1988 British Phonographic Industry Awards ceremony. Like Pete, Kenny was often at odds with The Who's temperamental lead singer. It's been reported that Roger felt that Kenny's drumming style, which was straighter and less frenetic than Keith Moon's, was just not right for the band. However, Roger has denied having any personal issues with Jones or his drumming. In an April 2011 special edition of Uncut magazine, Townsend maintained that he believed Kenny was a good choice for the band after Keith's death. Kenny was replaced by Simon Phillips for The Who's 1989 reunion tour. Now, Eminence Front was not constructed to be a single in the conventional sense. First off, the song has an extremely long intro. Pete's vocal doesn't come in until nearly 2 minutes into the song. I mean, that killer lick is so great. I would have loved to have an extended version of just the groove with no vocals. But, for a radio single, a track that goes on for 2 minutes without vocals is definitely a tactical no-no. Despite the long instrumental lead-in, Album Rock Radio, they embraced Eminence Front. The track peaked at number 5 on the mainstream rock chart, and it's still one of the most played titles at classic rock even today. It was released as the lead single from It's Hard, and it stalled at number 68 on the Billboard Hot 100. Actually, a little surprised that Eminence Front got any top 40 airplay at all. My belief is this, though. If The Who had really wanted it to be a top 10 hit, it would have been. If it was shorter, more compact, with Roger on vocals, and the tempo maybe a little faster, I think it would have been huge. But I like the way it is right now. It's got a very cool vibe. I do like Roger's vocals a little bit better, but that's nitpicking because Pete brings something really special to it as well. With all that was going on in his personal life and with The Who, it's remarkable that Pete Townsend was such a writing machine between 1980 and 1986. He composed some truly amazing material. I mean, going back to 1980 with the release of Pete's second solo LP, Empty Glass, great album featuring Let My Love Open the Door, which tied I Can See for Miles as the highest charting song on the Billboard Hot 100 by The Who or any member of The Who. Empty Glass also included Rough Boys, which was the lead single. It's an outstanding track that I would bet made Roger Daltrey and John Entwistle a little bit envious. Could have been a great song for The Who to record.
Boys, don't walk away. I feel pretty.
3 months before It's Hard was available in record stores, Pete dropped his third solo album, All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes, in June 1982. It featured Face Dances Part 2. In 1985, Pete put out White City, a novel which is full of inspired tracks such as Face to Face. Maybe my favorite solo Pete Townsend song, Give Blood, featuring 3 of Pete's favorite musicians, Simon Phillips on drums, Pino Palladino on bass, and David Gilmour on lead guitar. It may have been underrated because It's Hard was surrounded by bad reviews and, the lack of cohesive passion between the standing 3 members of The Who. But I gotta tell you, Eminence Front eventually got the acclaim it so richly deserved and became one of the greatest songs that The Who ever recorded. The track has held on to a modern resonance for sure. Unlike a lot of music recorded in the 80s, it doesn't sound dated. Eminence Front has been used to add a cool vibe to a lot of movies and TV shows. Surprised it hasn't been in more, actually. There's Law Abiding Citizen, Good, Entourage, Infiltrator. It was placed in an episode of Person of Interest, and it also was masterfully utilized in Miami Vice. In 2016, GMC used Eminence Front in their Precision campaign.
Precision is the kind of sharp.
The intro of Eminence Front has also been used for the beginning of sporting events, including the home games for the Dallas Mavericks, similar to the way the Chicago Bulls adopted Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. For many rock stars and other celebrities in various sectors of the entertainment business, there's always been a need to keep up appearances, right? Even though a celebrity has problems and challenges like everybody else, they just won't let the public break that veil. So in order to shield themselves, a facade is created, a put-on, that Pete Townsend so aptly described as an Eminence Front. It's a trap of a delusional lifestyle from fame and fortune that Pete fell into. Night after night, you're partying, dressed to kill, but in the end, it all feels the same, an endless, desperate loop with really no progress. That's why Pete understood it so well. He lived it. But fortunately, he sobered up, literally, and he found that life beyond the party was much more worthwhile. Taking down the Eminence Front helped him from not getting his wish that he sang about in My Generation, the wish of hoping he died before he got old. We're really glad that didn't happen. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to leave us a comment about The Who and Eminence Front. I think this is one of the best songs. It's in my top 5 by The Who for sure. What do you think? Let's have a great discussion below. What are your memories of it? If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.